I'm what you'd call a novice to Halloween Horror Nights, as I've only gone twice at this point, it's pretty safe to assume I'm a big fan of it, even though I don't know a lot about it and the lore and the history of the event. Being someone who lives in Florida, Universal's kind of a big deal. Orlando's like 2 hours away from my house, and Halloween Horror Nights always pops up as a topic of conversation, being someone who is a Halloween junkie, a horror junkie, as well as a theme park enthusiast too. Don't know if you knew that about me, but I am. And with Halloween Horror Nights being on its 30th anniversary, well, pandemic kind of messed up last year, so they moved it. It's all good. I really was impressed with this year, enough for me to make a video talking about my experience, what I liked, what I didn't like, and I'm going to also rank the mazes, because I think you deserve that. Before I jump into the mazes, though, I want to briefly talk about two things. One, I just want to talk about a food thing that I really enjoyed. It was the Twisted Potato. I know that has nothing to do with Halloween, but it's exclusively offered for Halloween Horror Nights patrons, and if you're there, seriously consider getting it. It was really good, and it did make my experience a lot better. Alright, no more talking about food, although I do food reviews on here, so don't be surprised if I try to get a potato and sneak it home with me. But the scare zones were definitely interesting. I can't say that I loved all of them, but there was one in particular. Now let's just get it out of the way. Seek and Destroy was freaking awesome. So much right about it. I love the theming. I love the execution of it, the searchlights and everything. Top-notch stuff. I wish I could just live there, to be completely honest. Maybe not when I sleep, but every other part of the day would be fine with me. The fact that it's so interactive, the weird alien, whatever you want to call them, people come up to you with like guns and scan you and force you to walk by, and they capture people. It's really fun and exciting. As opposed to some of the other scare zones, which weren't bad, but they weren't as interactive as this scare zone, Seek and Destroy. For example, Crypt TV, which is a property I honestly don't know a lot about, but a lot of that presentation for that scare zone were people on stages. Same for the Lights, Camera, Action with Eddie's Revenge. People on stages doing stuff. It's not bad. I liked Eddie's a little bit more just because I didn't really know a lot about Crypt TV, being transparent with you. But it takes a little bit away from the interactivity of the scare zone when they're not up in your face. They were more so in Eddie's than Crypt TV. They weren't bad. I liked that they had this kind of theme going where each stage represented it, well, in Crypt TV's case, probably different episodes or series, and for the Eddie Scare Zone, old scare zones, which was kind of a nice throwback with this anniversary year. And it was cool, but nothing like Seek and Destroy. The Gorewood Forest was fine. I liked the costumes that the scare actors had, and I liked the witch being lowered into the boiling water or whatever that was. But other than those things, it wasn't as remarkable as previous scare zones with that tree-covered area heading to the E.T., the Woody Woodpecker area. It was very simple, which isn't bad, but I was expecting a bit more. Even the lighting over there wasn't as impressive as it has been in the past. Finally, there's the 30 Years, 30 Fears entrance scare zone, which the entrance scare zone isn't as immersive as some of the others because it was basically just two walls with people on stilts. Still great though. I liked all the details put into the facades, that they showcased the icons. It's a really great entrance greeter to Halloween Horror Nights, and I think longtime fans of the lore and the mythos are going to get a kick out of walking in and seeing that. I wouldn't say it was that scary because the stilted people are more just cool than anything else, but it was enjoyable nonetheless. Now, let's get into ranking all 10 of the mazes. These are my opinions, of course, go figure, but I do have a few interesting tidbits to talk about with some of these houses because I was pretty impressed overall. None of them were bad. Okay, well the first one was not great, but the rest of them were pretty darn good, getting to excellent status. So, let's jump into them. At number 10, we have Scary Ohio, which is a very lore-rich maze. My problem with it is it didn't really make any sense. Even if I knew the lore, I feel like it still was a mismatched hodgepodge of different rooms. I liked the outdoor exterior theme a lot, and I was expecting it to be one of my favorites, but after going through it, though it had a few interesting scare scenes, it was nothing to write home about. I forgot a lot of it because it didn't have any kind of cohesive through-line narrative at all. And I don't know, it was lackluster. I was kind of disappointed because all of the other houses I thought were pretty good. This was the only one that kind of left me feeling disappointed. I do ask, why did they make a maze about Ohio in the first place? Beats me with a stick, but I would say if you're going through and you have to jeopardize one house to hit all the other ones, this would probably be the one to skip. At number 9, we have The Haunting of Hill House. No, Netflix's Haunting of Hill House. They have to throw Netflix in there somehow. Stranger Things was kind of the Netflix property before. Now we have Haunting of Hill House. I'm going to be upfront. I haven't watched the show. I'm just basing it off of the house itself. I like the facade, and I like what they were going for with this kind of gothic, spooky mansion. I didn't really understand a lot of what was happening because I haven't seen the show, and it wasn't made very clear in the maze, which I'm not expecting it to, because you can't replace an entire television show with a haunted house. But at the same time, it would have been nice to get that backstory a little bit more, or have it explained throughout the house. But you have like these ghosts on stilts, which was cool, because I haven't seen any stilted characters in a maze, which was nice. And there were a few scenes where things go dark, and then something is illuminated, like a woman hanging above your head, or something's revealed. And I thought that was cool. And if you know the show, I'm sure you're going to like it even more. The wait time, though, for this one has been extremely long. And again, if you need to jeopardize one, this also could be one on your chopping block. At number 8, we have The Bride of Frankenstein. I didn't want to put this here because I love the Universal monsters, but this is where it's going to sit. It's going to be where it chills. It's not a bad house. The opening facade was fantastic, and there were a few jump scares that really got me. In particular, these two vampire chicks that like pop out right in front of me. It got me twice, and it was scary both times. I like the use of the Frankenstein monster, and they did change the story quite a bit from the movie, making the Bride of Frankenstein the woman who's now the scientist as opposed to Dr. Frankenstein. I guess she's the Dr. Frankenstein character. I don't really care that much because it's a maze and they're going to be experimental with it. But if you are a fan of the movie, don't expect any callbacks to the original film. They really changed it up here, and that's not a bad thing. Some of the like hardcore like death metal music took me out of the experience a bit because I was expecting it to be more gothic, like The Haunting of Hill House. But with that said, it was still pretty good, a few good scares in there, and I had a fun time while going through it. At number 7, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think this one honestly should be higher, but all of the other ones are so exceptional that I have to keep it here for now, so this is where it's going to stay. But I will say, I went through this one time on one night, and recently I went again, and I liked it a whole lot better. So a lot of these come down to if you hit the timing right for the jump scares, and I didn't the first time, but I did the second time, so it averaged out to, well, being here at number 7. If you like the Texas Chainsaw series, if you like the film, you're going to like this. You're going to like the callbacks to the movie, and I feel like the people who made this maze sat down and said, people want to see Leatherface with a chainsaw. Let's give them Leatherface with a chainsaw, and he's in this a lot. So kudos to you, Halloween Horror Nights, for including this iconic character many times throughout the scare zone, or house, you know what I'm talking about. It was really fantastic to see him multiple times through it. I really don't have any major gripes about it. Again, I didn't hit the timing exactly right on some of these scares. But regardless, really great house. There are just so many others that I liked a little bit more. And I shouldn't say this on my channel, but not that I don't like the movie, but in terms of my favorite horror franchises, I can't say that I'm the hugest fan of the Texas Chainsaw series, but it's growing on me and I'm watching more and learning more about it. I am moving some around because I already disagree with my list here on my phone. Up next is going to be Halloween Horror Nights Icons, which is the kind of draw-in for a lot of fans this year, with the emphasis on these icons. Of course, you have like Jack, Chance, the Caretaker, the Usher, the Director, Fear. I mean, there's a ton of icons, and everybody has their favorite. What was cool about this house is that it paid homage to the previous years, with that 30 years, 30 fears tagline being very important. And I like that at the end of the house, there's actually a throne, and each night a different character, a different icon sits on that throne. It's very interactive and very cool for that reason, and each icon has their moment to shine. I wouldn't say this house was as scary as a lot of the other ones, but I really did enjoy it. The only real scary part was the Bloody Mary section, which got me a few times with the drop panels with the mirrors, and I like it for that. Although I will say the Ushers section, who's one of my favorite icons, maybe my favorite, his inclusion of popcorn and the smell of it was top notch. At number 5, we have Case Files Unearthed, or whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about. The noir, the detective one. This one was lower, but I moved it up because I love that theming so much. I love that like 1950s noir feel to it. The voiceover with the smooth jazz and like the, you know, this city is full of temptation. Like all that stuff is awesome. They have the kitty cat lounge in there. And it kind of feels like it's paying homage to SCP. Like these weird creatures that this detective is going out and killing or containing. Each different area of this house reflects a different case that he was on, and we get into kind of this occult, weird vibe, and I really like chilling in that, and I could feel the passion put into this house. Wasn't as scary the first time. The second time I hit the scares right, and it was far more intense, but even with the scares out of the way, the theming and the integration of the characters and the monsters into this world was really exciting to see. In terms of the coolest house this year, I think the Wicked Growth Maze has to be probably the best. I love the opening to this. All the pumpkins, the jack-o'-lanterns, feels so October, so Halloween. It was a perfect way to start this. And by the very end, you are literally inside of a giant jack-o'-lantern. Really cool stuff, Halloween Horror Nights. Very effective. Lots of throwbacks to the classic traditions of Halloween. And also, one of the scarier mazes. This one constantly jump scared me with really effective scares. There's a fake fence that is very important to this. A lot of like weird set pieces that make you look one way and an actor pops out from the other direction. Very good use of those haunt techniques that were showcased here. I really liked all of the theming, all of the work put behind this. This is going to be one that I think people will look back at in the future and wish they could go to it, so put this on your priorities list. Speaking of priorities lists, let's talk about number 3, Beetlejuice. One of the biggest names for this Halloween Horror Nights event is the first inclusion of Beetlejuice being, or I really should say having his own maze. Beetlejuice has gone back with Universal Studios since they opened, with the original show and having the theme constantly playing, having a Beetlejuice run out on the sidewalk while you're there. He's integrated a lot into the theme parks, and so for him to get his own house was spectacular. While this house isn't exactly scary, I don't really think that was the intention. Similar to the Killer Clowns or the Ghostbusters houses, this was a house for the fans and to have fun with it. And it captures those moments that you love from the movie so well, you feel like you're in the movie. And to have Beetlejuice running around and doing his thing was super cool to see how they integrated certain scenes, like the Deo part, or the sandworms, all of that was done really well and smoothly to the point where it felt like you could follow the rhythm of what was happening. My only issue, and this could go for all of the houses, and it's not really their fault, it's just the nature of this pandemic, but to have Beetlejuice jump out wearing a face mask takes away from the character because he is so expressive. You can't really do him with like that. And that goes to a wider thing, which kind of took the year down a little bit, is that a lot of the jump scares you could see coming with the plexiglass. Suspend your disbelief and just enjoy the ride, because it's going to be there for the safety reasons. I get it, Universal. And hopefully we can see that go away in the future so we can bring back the really effective, really classic jump scares here. At number 2, we have the Puppet Theater Captured Maze. This was the scariest maze to me. This and the number 1 spot. I really thought this one was creepy. I don't know if it's just because I get weirded out by evil puppets, but the effectiveness of the jump scares and the creep factor was fantastic. There were some parts where there was no one jumping out at me, but I still felt uneasy because of the imagery placed before me. There are sounds, there are smells, there are puppets, and all of that is integrated really, really well with an amazing facade, a very creepy soundtrack, and a house that scared the poo out of me like 7 times each time I went through it. I even went through while it was still daylight outside, and it still scared me. So, you know, Puppet Theater, you're doing something right. But speaking of doing something right, let's talk about number 1, my favorite house that I think I've been to at Halloween Horror Nights, which is weird to say, Revenge of the Tooth Fairy. I wasn't expecting to like this one as much as I do, obviously. It was a sleeper hit, I guess, for me. When we were going and we saw the sign that says Tooth Fairy, I started laughing almost. I'm like, the Tooth Fairy has a house? Sounds kind of stupid. And a lot of people have said it is stupid, but for me, I found it so creepy. I found it to be pretty intimidating and scary. And the Tooth Fairy character was very effective. In fact, I think the Tooth Fairy should become an icon. I would start that petition because I love this house so much. The soundtrack was very creepy and ominous. The narration, the facade with the storybook, the fact that you could really follow it throughout, like, you know, the Tooth Fairy's after this kid and after the family taking the teeth and replacement, you could follow it really well. And when a house is done well like that, and the scares are set up, the story is set up, the audio, every part of the experience of this maze was top-notch, and I think that's why it's my favorite for Halloween Horror Nights 2021. The 30th anniversary. This has been an exciting topic to talk about, and I want to hear your opinions of Halloween Horror Nights, specifically your favorite maze of the year, in the comments down below. And for my friends in California, for the Hollywood location, let me know what you thought about your mazes. You got Michael Myers, so you already got me there. But that's alright, because this year was truly fantastic. Thank you for watching, and remember, for all things Halloween, this is hauntformer.